This is Joshua Harvey, and this is my playcanvas project. So, basic navigation tools of playcanvas is you can change your position looking down on your project if you hold left click and you just drag around the screen, and then to like look around like your first person camera, like it's a first person camera. You right click, you hold right click, and you just look around. And then if you want to pan, what you do is you hold shift and you left click and you move it around like this. You can zoom in and zoom out with the scroll bar on your mouse. Um, that's pretty much it for navigating around your view of the project. So for the basic menu here, you have there's different things here. There's translate, rotate, and scale. And what these do is it helps you change, like for example, translate will help you move an entity up and move an entity down. And then you have rotate, and that will pretty much allow you to rotate your entities. And you can actually access translate by pressing 1 on your keyboard while you have a entity selected. You can access rotate by pressing 2, having an entity selected. And then for scale, this changes the size or the scale of your entities, and that can be accessed by pressing 3 on your keyboard while an entity is selected. The snap tool, that's another thing on the menu here. That pretty much will allow you to snap an entity around. If you look on the right here, you see the position is -37, and if I move the snap tool, it'll change by whole numbers. The units will change by whole numbers, and if you don't have snap collect or selected, it'll move fluidly instead of as like exact units. So snap is useful for just making your project look cleaner as a whole and making it easier. And then you have the focus tool here. So if you ever let's say you lose track of your project, you just click on like an entity and you click focus, and it'll take you back to your project. And then you have the undo button. And what that does is, like, if you create an entity or make a change to your project that you don't like, you just click undo, and that will undo what you did. So, and then on the right here, you have everything you need for like when you're editing your entities and stuff. You have the name of the entities, the position, the rotation, scale, which can all be changed by 1, 2, and 3, or these on the left here. And you have your collision, and you can pretty much add components on the right here to your entities. And that's what this little bar on the right here is for. Here, this is your hierarchy, and pretty much this is a giant list of all your entities in your project. That's what that does. This button here, if you click on this, it'll launch your project. So once you're done like creating your game, you just click the play button, and you can start playing your game. Here is a list of all your assets, and yeah, so we'll get on to the next part of the rubric. So entities are pretty much everything here that you see. So like all these boxes are entities, all these boxes are entities, the monsters are entities, everything here is an entity. And you create an entity by right clicking on the root. You can make a new entity. There's all different kinds of entities. There's audio, camera, light, particle systems. And primitive here is pretty much your basic building blocks of your project, your basic entities. So you have boxes and stuff, and all of these are boxes. And so assets is everything you see here. An asset is pretty much something that you can apply to an entity. So here is a music asset, right? And you can apply this to an entity if you want to add sound to the entity. These are different entities themselves. You can drag this onto the project, and it'll create like a little axe. These are materials. The little spheres are materials, and you can create those by pressing a new and the material. And what a material pretty much is a texture that you can add to entities, and you can give it a texture by dragging an image you upload into playcanvas. You can drag it here, and it'll apply it to your entities. Okay, so for lighting, there's different kinds of lights. There's directional light, point light, and spotlight. So I have directional light and spotlights in this project, and you can see here on the monsters and on the treasure chest, there's a spotlight pointing down. And pretty much spotlights, you can change the size, you can change the position, You can change the color of them, and you add a spotlight into your project by pressing a new entity, light, and spotlight. So a spotlight is another entity in the game, in your game. And for directional light, it's pretty much just like I use it and this one for the main source of light. And what a directional light is just a light that's pointing down, and you can change the intensity of it, or you can change the direction of it, of your light too. It's just a light that goes into a direction is pretty much what I'm trying to say. But yeah, you can change the intensity of it, the color, pretty much everything that you can change for a spotlight too. So for skyboxes, so you add a skybox into your project, you go into settings and you go into rendering, and then here is the little menu where you can add your skybox. And what a skybox is if you look around the map like this, you can see how there's like a galaxy in the back, and that is just pretty much like the world outside of your project. It's what you see when you look around the map, and that's what a skybox is. So particle systems are, let me go back to the kind of main area here. Sometimes the pan feature glitches out a little bit, so it's tough to, there we go. So particle systems are, particles are like particles in your game. So it's really hard to select this here. I have multiple particle systems in my project. This one is, the function of this particle system is smoke. Smoke to like add kind of like an eerie vibe to the game, and it looks more like smoke when you're in the project. But you can change like pretty much everything about your particle system. So like the velocity, the speed, the scale, the color, you can change the color of it. If you want to make like smoke or whatever, you take the opacity and you just crank that all the way up, and that makes it almost look like smoke. And the scale is the size of each particles. It changes the count of particles per lifetime of the, or for the lifetime of the particle system. And so yeah, so that's particle systems. I have multiple particle systems. I have some of my monsters. So these, as you can see, I kind of played around with it, and I made the particle system red by changing the color here. And I also change the scale of it. So they start out kind of medium sized, and then it dips down, and then it gets big, because you can kind of see it gets smaller as it goes out, and then kind of fades away, and it gets big at the very end. So I change the scale of the particles and the color, and you can just kind of play around with them and make them how you like. So for code and for JavaScript in playcanvas, sorry, this thing glitches out a lot. Not a very good engine. But so JavaScript, you can pretty much apply scripts to entities in your projects. And the script I have in this one is a first-person one. And so in this you have, there's keyboard input in this script. Where is it? Right here. And what this does is you can see the different keys clicked will change the movement on the X and Z axis. So that is kind of what's happening in the script. And there's also rotation of entities in the script when you move your mouse around. And the combination of the keyboard input, moving the 3D object, and the mouse rotating the object. If I click play, it allows you to be in first person while you're playing the game. So that is my script in the game. And so pretty much you add a script, you just go here, you click new asset, and you can upload scripts, and then you can type your own script. You can do whatever you want to scripts, and you apply those to entities by clicking on your entity, and you click add component, and you can add a script just like that, and then you just drag it on there. And that is how you add scripts to your entities in playcanvas. So I also have collision on my entities, and what this does is you can see when you move your character around, instead of just going through the entities, it hits and it's like it collides with the entities. And this allows for an interactive like experience in your game. That way you're not just flying through the walls. And my game just like refreshed or something. I don't know what happened. But that is collision, and you add collision to your entities by by pressing add component and then adding collision. And there's different kinds of collision. There's boxes. All these are different like kinds of collision, and the half extents are pretty much half of the scale of the entity. So for example, if you want a box collision to fit the box entity, if the scale is 2, it's 1, 10, 5. It's just half of whatever the scale number is for the half extents. And then rigid body pretty much tells the game that it's like that is the body pretty much, and it tells the body the entity had to act pretty much. And there's either static, dynamic, and kinematic. And static is the entity will be still. Dynamic is it'll allow it to move. You can give it friction and restitution. And so that's collision rigid body. So for sound, there's different kinds of sound that you can add to your game. You can add audio listeners in sound. And so an audio listener pretty much is, if I wanted to put like an audio listener on my character, then that would be pretty much telling the game when to listen to the sound. It's pretty much like, if you like, it's audio listener is pretty much like a pair of ears, right? You move around the map and then you hear, let's say if I added a sound to this thing here and then an audio listener to this character here, I also move this character closer to the sound, then the audio listener is like ears and it'll pick up the sound. So that's how an audio listener works, and that's how sound works. And you add sound to your entities by selecting new component, and then you add where's sound? Okay, so you add sound by clicking new component in sound. And sorry about that pause, I couldn't find this for some reason because it was like grayed out. But okay, I accidentally reloaded my project. But you add component and then you click sound right here, and you can add sounds to your entities, and you go here. And so pretty much another kind of asset you can add is sound. And you add a sound asset and you can drag it onto your entities, and that'll give the entity sound. For example, in my game, the sound you hear, like the spooky eerie music, is because I added sound to the main character, which is the playbot guy here. It has a sound that is always playing. It's on a loop, and it's on autoplay, and it's looped so that you can hear the music constantly throughout the game. So yeah, that's pretty much everything about how the menus work and how it was very, very brief. I didn't go into very much detail because of just time-wise, but of different entities. I went over sound, collision, rigid body, everything you need to create your game, lights. And so now I'll play the game and I'll show you pretty much the premise of my game. So my game is a maze, and it's kind of like a Halloween maze, and the whole purpose of the game is to get to the treasure chest at the end here, and that's how you win. And throughout the game, there's different jump scares. Like, boom, there's a monster there, and if you hear that noise, that was a jump scare because there's an audio listener on my playbot, and there's a sound added to the monster. So when I get close enough, when I get in range, that will play, and that's like the jump scare sound. You can see my smoke particle system here. You hear all the spooky sounds that I've added to the game. And then I'm just kind of, I know how to get through the maze here, so I'm kind of going around here. Here's another monster I added, and I had to add all the entities and acts and everything. That was another jump scare audio sound there. Then once you get to the end, you have a little arch and you walk through, and then you win. So that's pretty much the premise of my project, and there's monsters scattered throughout the map that I had to make. And yeah, that's my project.